the biggest thing that I'm trying to do with them is fight human nature, which is right now for the last 7 months, everyone's been patting them on the back and telling them how sweet they are. I think that's one of the biggest traps in football is that we spend so much time talking about the Big 12 championship or the national championship. You lose sight of the process. It gives you a chance to be in those conversations because you drop a couple bad games and now you're out of it and it's over.
Welcome back or welcome to Y Option. I'm your host, Yogi Roth, and it is training camp. That means you are reading your favorite beat writers' tweets every single day. What's going on with my team? What's happening with my favorite program? And I'm doing my best to crisscross the country, see as many teams as possible. On Friday, I was in Seattle, got to see Jet Fish, and the tour just continues throughout the rest of this week. I miss my kids, but thankfully I get to see you, Jim Thornby. I don't miss you, man. I just love being around you. I feel like we talk 100 times a day. So how you doing, man?
To that point, I was watching you at Ashley on Friday, and again, as I texted the both of you, it's weird to see you guys on a different network, but it was good to see familiar faces in familiar places. It was kind of funny that at the same time that the two of you were in Seattle for that show, then when I was done watching that, I flipped over to ACC Network and I'm watching the ACC road show from Cal, and I'm just like, yeah, I guess here we are. This is the reality of the situation at this point.
Yeah, it was definitely weird walking across Husky Stadium and seeing the Big Ten logo for the first time. Like, I think I took a picture of it and I was like, okay, and look, we've talked about this many times, like because of the football, because of the competition, because of training camp, because of practices, you have to turn the page. You have to go compete. Now, the waters are muddied, it seems like everywhere, whether it's in the ACC or the Big 12 rumor mill is a muck like it traditionally is with random accounts on social. Our advice is always be thoughtful, take a breath, namaste, and try to be entertained by it and enjoy your team, because we are going to continue to compete on this show to take the helmet off, tell the stories of the players, tell the stories of the coaches, and have thoughtful dialogue around the sport. Which leads us to today. Today's guest, to me, is one of my favorite people in this sport, probably one of my favorite people overall, like in just life. Brent Brennan, currently the head coach at your Arizona Wildcats. Jim Thornby, a proud alum there. Also former head coach and coach of the year at San Jose State. Also formerly an assistant at many places, but notably Oregon State. That's when he and I first met. I think we have a kindred spirit, former walk-on wideouts who then found their time to the field. He at UCLA and me at Pitt, which I will be at later this week, which should be a fun trip back to Pennsylvania. But with that said, Jim, I've always felt Brent Brennan is dramatically thoughtful. Like, he literally is the ethos of this show, of this content platform. And thank you all for the love and support at yoption.com. With that said, we caught up with him at Big 12 Media Days, and it was fun. It was fun to go down memory lane, and it's also fun to watch him talk about his program. Now, I want to ask you, because you're an alumni, your impact that you think Brent Brennan has had. But before I ask you that, I want to say my favorite thing about Brent Brennan. He's got what is commonly referred to as growth mindset. So what is that? That means, like, when you find success, are you just happy with the status quo, or are you continually competing to be the best version of yourself? After they win the Mountain West title, he could have easily been complacent. He was, let's just say this, AD is like calling him, right? He was a hot commodity, has been for a long time. He went just to work. Like, he truly lives like be where your feet are. And he went and had meetings and had calls with the likes of Phil Jackson, of Steve Kerr, another alum from your prestigious institution. Like, he just went to work on his own approach and philosophy. He's been on this show numerous times talking about that. And now he's implementing that at a team that was thriving when he took over. It isn't a dramatic rebuild. Jet Fish built that thing up. And now I think Brent Brennan's going to take it to another level once they get and start competing at the Big 12. So with that, that's my thoughts. What are your thoughts? It's got to hit a little closer.
Yeah, and it's also, it's funny that you were just in Seattle with Jed, and now we're doing this here, and it's
it's kind of the dual like expectation set. Like, you know, Jed had kind of has built that program up, and now he's in Seattle with an entirely new team. I mean, literally a new team, as as you can see. I mean, there probably were a ton of familiar faces other than Jeff Bechtold and Haley Rowe, the two SIDs there for you. But in Arizona now, there are a lot more familiar faces on the playing side, with a lot of those guys returning. And, you know, Brent gets into that coming up there with a very humble answer about, you know, it not being about him, it's being about them. So it'll be interesting to see, like, how much leeway for both of those programs those coaches get this season based on the situations that they have now inherited. You know, Jed is coming off a team that was in the national championship game. So obviously from that level, you're like, oh man, expectations are going to be sky high. But most of those players are in the NFL. Whereas Brett is coming into a team that, you know, has had one of its best seasons in a long time. I mean, a long, long time in Tucson. But now him and his staff is coming in for a team that is returning most of those guys. So it'll be kind of interesting to see not only how does each team and coach kind of thrive in those experiences, but also how do the fan bases like level up those expectations on, you know, what is a successful season for both.
Yeah, that's a great call. Like, are they going to be comped to what Kalen DeBoer did, Chris Peterson did? Yeah, I think that's going to be the standard at UW. Not year one, but year two, year three, they're expecting to compete for championships. And then in Arizona, for all intents and purposes, like, you could flip a coin and say, with Noah Fifita, Tedro McMillan, when healthy, which let's hope he gets back as quickly as possible, they should be competing for the Big 12 championship game. Like, it would be beautiful. It would be, I'm going to predict it. Utah, Arizona, Big 12 champ, and the winner plays like Oregon in the CFP. Just why not? Like, let's just have a blast with all of it. But they should be in that mix. Now, their schedule isn't easy, as we know, but Brent Brennan has gone to work in training camp, laying the foundation. Did it in spring when he got there. It clearly worked when you watched Noah Fifita and T-Mac and Jonah Savanaya and company decide, yeah, we want to come down and build a legacy. So I want to leave with that, because I do think that there's an opportunity for those players to leave a legacy. Like, we're talking about Washington and 44 new scholarship players. 44 new scholarship players. Like, yes, you can leave a legacy when you transfer in. Bo Nix did it. Michael Penix Jr. did it. But it is hard to do that, in my opinion. But when you come there and you grow and develop, and the fan base in real time is falling in love with you, like they did with T-Mac as a freshman, like they did Noah last year in the back half of the season, those guys, I'm so glad for them that they made that decision, because A, that was the one they wanted to make. But then B, they're going to have something for the rest of eternity to lean on. You know better than anybody. Like, Jim Thornby goes into dirt bags and never pays for a drink. These guys, I don't know if they drink. I'd imagine they probably don't. But they'll go into any restaurant they want there and not pay for a meal, but also have all the support and love from that community. So with that, let's get to the conversation from Big 12 Media Days with Arizona Wildcats new head coach and good friend Brent Brennan. And as always, all of our conversations at Y Option are presented by our founding partner, 76. Love 76. They go. Brent Brennan has been going. He doesn't stop. This program, they don't plan on stopping. So let's get to the conversation presented by 76 with Brent Brennan. So you've been on every iteration of this podcast. You were on How Great Is Ball, Yogi Roth Show. You were on The It Factory.
Yeah.
And now you're on this, Y Option, college football through the lens of the West Coast. One of my favorite people ever, Coach Brent Brennan. Thanks, man.
Dude, it's awesome to be here. And I always love listening to your podcast. And I think you're one of the most creative and fun people in this industry. So it's, shoot, I'll do this whenever you want, brother.
I love it. We need to get on our run. So just to give the background, like, that's where we're connected at Oregon State. We would go on a run Friday after production.
That's right. It
was awesome, man.
It was cool. And I feel like most of the time you were there during good weather.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, the rain hadn't hit yet, you know, so we were like running in the sunshine. There was like that trail back by the farms. That was one of my favorite runs, but it was always fun to catch up with you.
Yeah, it was awesome. So this is awesome too. I mean, I just love seeing you here. as the head coach of this school with this logo, with Dick Tomey as the influence for you. I know you'd have a ton of time to reflect because the calendar for coaches needs to change and it's very aggressive.
Right.
But have you taken a minute in a couple maybe days this summer and been like, let me zoom out a little bit. I'm the head coach exactly where like I should be, because you were at San Jose State, you're rumored for a bunch of other jobs over the course of your career, but now you've netted out at this place.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I honestly, like I have a little moment of gratitude every day when I walk into the building, because our parking lot, like I kind of cross the street and walk into the corner, and the corner is the corner of the end zone building of the Lowell Stevens football facility, and also has like our logo and like, Arizona football, and it's a surreal moment. But I do almost every day I look up at it and I'm like, this is cool. Like, this is pretty special.
Ready, set. Use French fries to go. Yeah, oil from French fries. Turn yesterday's leftovers into today's fuel. More power, lower emissions. 76 renewable diesel fuels all the ways you go, go, go.
I've said this many times. I've done a bunch of interviews at Big 12 Media Days and a bunch of others since you got the job. And I said, Brent Brennan is one of the best I've ever seen at creating and sustaining culture. Overused word. Dramatically overused.
Yeah.
But I think accurate for you. So if so, how do you do it? How have you gotten to this place wherever you've been, whether it was Brandin Cooks in the receiver room, or San Jose State, and winning a championship there in the Mountain West, or now here at Arizona?
I think, I come from a family of people, and it's always about investing in people. That was also the people that brought me up in coaching, whether it was, Dick Tomey or Mike Riley or Rich Ellerson or Rick Neuheisel, like the people that made football fun, but also really cared about you as a person. And that's the way I lean. And I think the culture thing, it is an overused word, but it's not for me. Like it's how we create connected, committed football teams. And that might not work for everybody. For some people, it might just be business and X's and O's and hiring and firing players and all that stuff. But that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to invest in young people. We're going to help them grow and develop on and off the field. And hopefully through that process, we can build a championship football program at Arizona.
I love that. So there's something I've been worried about the last couple of years in college football with the portal. I remember seeing it with Jordan Addison. Played at Pitt, won the Blitnikoff, and he left, came to USC, had a really good year, was a first-round pick. But I always wondered, like, Pitt fan base, how do they feel about him? Did he do enough at SC for long enough to have the fan base always care about him? And I just get worried about that, because there's something that I think in college athletics where if you stick around, you can build like a legacy for yourself.
Right.
And that might be archaic. I don't think so. But within that, you watched a lot of players stay. What do you think that has done to the facility, to the alumni base? What do you think it'll do for them in their future?
It's funny you say that, because as soon as you said like legacy is lost, I'm like, not at our place. Like, I'm living it. And that's one of the reasons those players chose to stay together. I think too often this conversation, like, I'm getting credit for them staying. I had nothing to do with it. This is these guys choosing to stay together. They love each other. Coach Fish and that staff did a great job of recruiting great players and great people. And they were super committed through the fire they went through, right? They're on what the first year was. Second year, I think they won 5-7, and third year, bang, this 10-win season. I think the struggle of that early time together really galvanized them and really brought them together, and they weren't willing to give it up. And so they chose to stay for each other. And I think legacy-wise, they'll be remembered forever in Arizona football. And that's something that is really cool there, that like the great players are, we have Chuck Cecil and Ricky Hundley and Bobby Wade and Brandon Sanders on our staff. Like when we go to events, like that's who they want to see. Like they don't care about Brent Brennan. Like they're like, where's Chuck Cecil? Where's Ricky Hundley? And that's the kind of legacy these players that chose to stay are going to have with the 2024 team at Arizona.
Let's continue on the staff, because I don't think he gets enough play. Dwayne sticks around, legend in football. You have a great relationship with him. Danny Gonzalez, former head coach, brilliant defensive mind. Dino Babers, who I still remember the first day he came to Pitt and just crushed me in like bag drills in winter conditioning. I'll never forget. He came in and we're like, the guy with the military background, he's kicking on you know what. And then he went and had dramatic success at Baylor and, of course, Syracuse. I want to hear about these guys. And then what's your role now? Because you have such great coaches as the CEO of the team.
Yeah, so I feel like the staff is fantastic. We have a great combination of like youth and enthusiasm, and actually even our older coaches like coach with insane enthusiasm. Like there's days where like Dwayne Aquina is rolling, and I'm like talking to myself. I'm like, you better get your ass going. Like Dwayne is crushing you right now. Like he is like all over the field. I mean, dude, in our workout last week, like he ran with the players. Like he ran the sprints with the players. That like the dude is amazing. I'm like this guy. But I had so much respect for him when I saw him coach for the first time. I was at Arizona as a GA. He was incredible. And he was, I was a wideout guy and he's a secondary guy. So I was like always around him and I was always intrigued by him. And then one of my best friends in coaching, Dave Phipp, was coached by him. And then Dave and I coached together for a long time and are still good friends. We just talked about the magic of Dwayne Aquina. So, being able to get him to stay was incredibly important. I thought also being able to have some consistency with the scheme on defense. I felt like the biggest jump at Arizona in between the 22 season and the 23 season was defensive. And that led to this magical season, them being able to connect those two sides of the ball. And so Dwayne was a really important part of that. But like Danny Gonzalez is like a fantastic football mind, and I've had to coach against him a bunch. Really what I did is we went out and like I hired guys that had kicked my butt at one time or another, in football. But just like, and also just an incredible human being. And, he was kind of on the bad business side of college football a year ago. The New Mexico thing was taking some time to get, in the place he wanted it to get to. But it was our game, And then Dino's been a mentor for 25 years for me. He coached my brother at U of A. But there's also all the good parts that I brought from San Jose too. So I have incredible like trust and belief in Matt Atkins and Josh Oglesby and Joe Samalo, like one of the best D-line coaches in America, gets no credit, consistently like is one of the top sack teams in the conference in the country, everywhere he's ever been. So like I feel like the staff is outstanding, and like Brett Arcee and Ty Nichols and some of these young coaches are really important, keeping the staff, keeping the players together and keeping us connected and building a connection to me and the new coaches, getting to know them. So it's been a whirlwind, but like the staff is like a really important component of, and also back to your culture thing a couple minutes ago, like the coaching staff and the players have to agree to fight for the culture every day. So you have to hire people that are going to care about kids and care about their development, and then to continue to push the culture and drive the culture. And those guys do that. And as for me, like, to me, even in San Jose, I'm responsible for. I'm talking too long. I know. I'm sorry. I
love it. Keep it going.
Like for me, like I'm responsible for the environment. Like, do they love coming to work every day? Mm-hmm. Players and coaches. Is it healthy? Like, is it productive? Is it worthwhile? Like, we ask so much of young people now. Like, I don't ever want them to dread walking in the facility. And you won't believe, like, you come to our building every day. There's 40, 50 kids every day of the year. Just like walking around, what's up, coach? What's up? In my door, like, yeah, like it's like just walk in my office, sit down. Like it's how I want to be. I hope, and I think that also helps serve the culture. I think they kind of help each other.
There's been numerous people that have sat me down here at Media Days and said, "Who's going to win the Big 12?" I said, "I hope Utah and Arizona play for the championship, and then the next team plays Oregon in the playoff. Just got to keep it going just a little bit." But transitioning in. What's it been like for you? I mean, you played at UCLA, you're a Pac-12 guy, and now you're entering this league with 3 other schools that came from the Pac.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think as a Pac-12er or Pac-10er, like, there's a sadness to that conference not being around anymore. But then there's also an incredible excitement about this new thing, right? Like the thing to me that's so interesting, I'm trying to explain to our players and our fans, is that we're now going to be playing football in an area of the country where football really matters, and where we were like at one of the best kind of capacity attendance teams in the Pac-12 last year. In our new conference, we'll be last, right now, and we need to step that up. And so there's a lot of learning and education that's going into that. But like those venues are going to rock, and like Friday night at Kansas State, and on the road at Texas Tech, or it's just going to be awesome. So TCU, let's go.
It's going to be fun. When I first started broadcasting, I was working for Fox, and I pretty much was at K-State or KU every weekend.
Really?
And then out of a Baylor game when Dino was there. But your point, like, it was awesome. And like being a West Coast guy, I had no idea what Manhattan, Kansas was like.
Right.
But after a couple trips, you're like, this is pretty pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
they take their football, to your point, really seriously. I think it's going to juice your players up. So to that point, what have you been impressed by around these players? Because you do have a championship caliber team, but a lot of things have to take place, leading with focus, leading with attention to detail. Like, what have you noticed about a pseudo veteran group that you've inherited?
I think we have some incredible leadership with Noah Fifita and Jacob Mono, Gunnar Maldonado, who's here. There's other people that fall into that. Jonas Avenea, Traden Stukes, like guys that are excellent players and excellent leaders. But I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to do with them is fight human nature, which is right now for the last 7 months, everyone's been patting them on the back and telling them how sweet they are and telling like all these big expectations. And like, I don't want anyone taking their focus off the process. Like, well, how did you get here? Like, how did you get to 10 wins, And so everything that, and the players have been great that way, like diving into that with our strength and conditioning staff and just being focused on right now. Like, how do we worry about right now? Not like game 7, like from in the season, like who cares? Like, I think that's one of the biggest traps in football is that we spend so much time talking about the Big 12 championship or the national championship. You lose sight of the process. It gives you a chance to be in those conversations because you drop a couple bad games and now you're out of it and it's over. So how often can I help pull us back into right now?
Love it, man. I think anybody watching our YouTube channel was wondering why you're rocking the lei at media days.
Yeah. So T-Mac's mom brought us leis, and over my coaching career, on several occasions, Polynesian players' mothers have given me leis on game day or for a big event, and I always wear them out of respect for their culture and for the thoughtfulness of the gift.
That's beautiful, man. Well, thank you for the thoughtfulness of time.
No problem.
So
buddy.
Fired up for you. Bummed I won't be calling games in Tucson, but we'll be talking about it every single week on Y Options. So we're going to ask to get you on, your players on. Can't wait to talk to you.
No problem. Any way I can support, I'm up for it. Really appreciate you.
Got it, man. It's the Afterglow. Welcome back, Jim Thorby, Yogi Roth. This is the part of the show where we talk about the guest we just had, Brent Brennan, presented by our founding partner, 76. Thank you for all of that love. And we talk about what did we learn? What do we wish we asked? What are our overall takeaways? Jim, that's your football coach. That's my coach. There he is. What do you think? Which takeaway?
He's just an impressive. His humility is, I think, what really kind of stands out to me when I hear him talk. And I'm sure his staff is probably wanting him to be a little less humble, but like it's cool to see. But I mean, like I'm kind of already now, as we're getting closer here, I'm looking at the schedule, and then like it's funny, like those first 2 weeks, they got New Mexico, which will be interesting with the defensive coordinator having just been the head coach at New Mexico, and then you got Northern Arizona, so you're like, oh yeah, this is just another typical Arizona season where you're seeing these same teams, and then you got Kansas State in a non-conference game against a now conference opponent. So that one doesn't count in the conference standings, but it is against a conference team. So that's just the reality thing. And then they get roll with Utah. So that's where, we're going to see, especially, I think, for everybody on the West Coast, looking at probably that Arizona-Utah game as kind of where both of those programs are at that point. Really a true circle game for both programs.
I couldn't agree more. I think hopefully the health of Arizona is at full strength for those two games on both sides of the ball, because they're going to need it. Those are easily the two best teams they're going to face all season long, in my opinion, at least as where we stand today. And I think those are two teams that are favorites to go to the Big 12 title and go and compete in the CFP. I think Avery Johnson is going to be an absolute star. We spent some time with him as well at Big 12 Media Days. He's going to take up a lot of space that Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. and Caleb Williams they no longer are taking up because they're no longer in college. So that will be a true test for this defense. And then, here we go. We got to go back to Utah. I mean, we were there. I called the game last time Arizona went to Utah, and it was not pretty. It was on the back end of a stretch of like 5 ranked opponents. I think a bunch were in the top 10 at the time. So I think some of the players know about it. I believe left corner of the end zone, Noah Fifita to T-Mac in the fourth quarter. So at least they've got a little experience pitching and catching in that beautiful stadium there in Salt Lake. I look at the rest of the schedule, and I think that they should be favored in every game. So even if they stumble at K-State or at Utah, they're going to be able to put themselves in position in the Big 12 to make a ton of noise. And I think there's something for year one for teams. And I love how their schedule is set up with those first 2 games that you referenced. Like, they should go and win those 2 ball games, kind of like an NFL preseason. I like that. I know it's fun to have a week 1 massive LSU, USC, or whatever. But as a coach, you love the idea of kind of easing into this thing, especially when it's brand new. So I think it probably won't look beautiful in the first 2 weeks of the season, but hopefully they get those kinks out. They're going to have to do that. And if they stumble, they'll have more than the opportunities. Here's the thing that I want to challenge the fan base on, though. The reality of the Big 12, like when you go to, granted, Texas Tech is at home, when you go to BYU, when you go to UCF, when you go to TCU, when you go to K-State, I've called games in those stadiums. You watch those stadiums. They pack the house. It is bonkers. So when these random logos come into your stadium for the first time, like Texas Tech, like Colorado, like West Virginia, like Houston, Wildcat fans have to show out. Like, it has to feel like it was when Oregon and USC went there in the past. Like, that is the challenge, because that's what your team is going to face every week on the road. And home field advantage needs to be a thing. You know that fan base as well as anybody. I think I know it pretty well. Like, they've proven to do it. I want to see it every single weekend for this program.
And it's funny because some of those schools that you rattled off there, like, those have been schools that have come in at somewhat recent history in non-conference games, some of those first couple of weeks. And it didn't, it doesn't feel like that big. Like, to your point, like, this does need to feel big. Like, they do need to, like, make sure that, like, this is your new new Oregon. This is your new Washington. This is your new USC that are coming to town, that, like, you need to get up for it, and you need to make sure that it is an uncomfortable environment for that road team to come into. So
that's a good point. You know what I thought about when you said it? Because none of those are the teams that you referenced. Like, the history isn't there, etc. But that's the beauty of the league too, right? Like, you go to media days, and let's just say it was last year at the Pac-12. Even if Arizona came off a 10-win season, they're still not going to be the lead dog. It was going to always be those other brands. In the Big 12, when we were there, Arizona was in the dialogue of the lead dog. Like, they wanted to talk about the 2 players in Noah and T-Mac that were there. They wanted to talk about Jacob Manu and some of the players that are returning. And talking about Utah, K-State wasn't, like, dramatically above them. Like, Deion has his own thing. So I think that's the point, though, for Arizona fans, is like, you have a chance to be that lead dog in this league. And for all intents and purposes, you should be. You should be. You got to get your own house in order. Like, I know there's transitions happening on campus, but on the athletic side, in basketball and men's basketball, women's basketball, and football, Arizona has a chance to take up a ton of real estate.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And like, because when you're in a conference for so long, you have to have that prolonged success. Like, it's always going to be, in the Pac-12, it was always that, we were the school that didn't go to the Rose Bowl. And, like, that was always the thing that was, held against us, and rightfully so. But it was hard to ever, be, the guy in that conference because of that. But now you're coming into this starting fresh, and, you're coming with 3 of your former conference mates. You're coming into, a conference that had 4 more schools just join the conference. They're still fresh. And it's a conference that has seen so many different iterations in the last 30 years, from the Big 8 and and everything else. So there is that open real estate for someone to go. Texas and Oklahoma are gone. There's not that, there's not that team that everybody is circles on their schedule and go, this is the team every year that everyone's going to talk. Everyone in New Jersey or everyone in Chicago is going to be talking about those teams, all year long. It's the thing is there. Someone just has to go out and grab it.
Okay. Well, speaking of going out and grabbing, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to grab some breakfast, and then I'm going to start training camp. This tour is just going to continue. It should be a fun week. keep up with Y Option on social. Trying to do a good job of making you guys connected to all the stops that we're at. Any questions you have, please let me know. Let Jim know. We're all over. And we mean it. It's been so fun to start something new. I got to be honest, Jim, last week when I was at UW and ran into our friend Christian, who runs On Motlike here on the Substack platform, the support from the community has been amazing. He'll be on this show shortly, and vice versa. We'll do a little home and home. But for all of you, whether it's on social or on the platform or yoption.com, so much love, so much gratitude. Thank you. We are competing to bring it to you. We're competing to bring you college football through the lens of the West Coast in a thoughtful manner as often as humanly possible. Jim has not slept since we kicked this thing off, so we're going to make sure he can go shut it down for a little while, and I'll eventually sleep later tonight too. But no, seriously, Jim, love you, man. Thank you all for the love and support. And for Jim Thornby, I'm Yogi Roth. Again, thanks to our partner 76. Lots of love. Stay safe. Training camp tour rolls on. Peace.